Revenge served cold.
I trashed my husband's legacy after he passed. I thought I had the perfect marriage. I was a stay-at-home wife, a trad wife, if you will. My husband, a respected surgeon, provided me and our children 16M, 15M and 9F our needs and even wants. We had been married for 17 years. He worked and earned us money. I take care of the household and the children. I was happy with our roles. I was content with it. Until he died. I got a call one morning that my husband was in a vehicular accident. I rushed to the hospital hoping he was fine. He wasn't. He died minutes before I arrived. I was devastated, knowing that the only man I ever loved was gone. Telling our kids that their dad was gone was probably the most difficult thing I had to do. Our house was devoid of laughter for days after we buried him. I didn't want to get up in the morning, but I had to remember that my kids needed me. I was sent his things from his office. My husband was writing a book about his research. I knew it was finished and just needed final touches. He called it his life's work, and I was so proud of him for doing it. What I found in his things was his book and then some. My husband was a genius, judging by the book he wrote, and the devil in disguise, based on the messages and photos he exchanged with a few people. He was in touch with a total of 3 people, his publisher, his lawyer, and his former assistant. The first one was for his book. The second one was for the legality of having me sign a postnuptial agreement. The third one was for a personal reason. The thing about my husband was he was very meticulous. He kept his documents in order. At home, he wanted me to keep all things in order, too. That is why when I got a hold of his belongings from work, everything was there for me to learn more about him, including his affair with his younger assistant. They had been lovers for years, ever since he hired her. She resigned from her position a year ago because she found out she was pregnant and, apparently, my husband could afford to keep her and their unborn baby in a home. Unfortunately for her, she lost the baby. Fortunately for her, she did not have to keep on working because my husband was willing to provide for her anyway. He set up a flat for her and gave her a sizable monthly allowance. An affair, though really hurtful, is one thing. A plan to destroy me to get out of our marriage was another. You see, my husband was a good provider, but only for one family. And housing a new shiny thing meant that he had to get rid of his old one. Our kids, luckily for them, weren't included in his budget cut. It was just me he had to get rid of. He didn't want to pay spousal support or child support, with our kids all being minors, so he was asking his lawyer to draft a postnuptial for me to sign. How he was going to make me sign it without my reading it, I don't know. I was sure that there must be maneuvering he was planning so I would sign it without question. I did not get to see the final form of that contract because, luckily for me, my husband met his untimely demise before that paper was printed. The drafts, however, showed that he would basically leave me with nothing and that he would take the children. I couldn't reconcile what I was learning and from how I knew my husband. Never did I suspect that he was going to be so cruel to me. I had an inkling that he wasn't totally faithful, but I dismissed my own thoughts, telling myself that he did not deserve to be doubted like that. Angry was an understatement. I was livid. He knew that leaving me with nothing would basically be my downfall. I had little marketable skills and just a year of job experience. When we got married, I had to leave my job in IT. It would take me time to get back on updates in tech, and that would also mean time that I wouldn't have if he cut me off unexpectedly. He knew all that and didn't care. My next problem was telling my children. I didn't know whether I should take the high road and not tell them anything about their father's affair and plans to get rid of me. The decision came easy when my eldest and middle sons came to me and asked me not to shed too many tears for their father. They also didn't know how to tell me, but seeing me broken and helpless made them realize that I should know the truth. My husband, that asshole, was not only planning to take everything from me, he was also making sure to isolate me from my own children. They told me they knew their father had a girlfriend because during the times they were in his hospital, they saw him with her and thought they were unusually close for workmates. They were teens, they knew how to spot people in a relationship. What was also noteworthy was how their father was often dropping hints that I was having an affair and was probably planning to leave them. Whenever I was going on an errand, he would plant seeds in their mind that I was trying to get away from them. My husband was a fool for thinking his tricks would work on teenage boys. He never really knew them if he even thought that was going to change their mind about me. My youngest, though, couldn't understand what he was trying to convey. It perfectly explained why she would often ask me whether I was tired of her and if I was going to come back whenever I left. My husband, though intelligent, wasn't really an attentive nor a smart father. His girlfriend also wasn't innocent in all this. My boys said she would sometimes hand them lunch money from their dad and said that I forgot again to do it. I thanked my boys for being honest with me. I assured them that I was done crying and that my focus was now on raising them alone. Then I got to work. I started destroying whatever legacy my husband left in this world. I hired my own lawyer to make sure I got all my husband's money. I also wanted to make sure that there were no hidden bank accounts and whatnots. I didn't want to go to my husband's lawyer because I wasn't sure he would be fair. Next on the agenda was deleting my husband's book, calling his publisher and telling him that my husband had no book to show. I returned the advanced pay he got from them, so that even if they had a draft of his research, he would not get credited for it anymore. It was his life's work, as he had repeatedly told me, and so I felt tremendous joy in deleting all the copies. Then I called the real estate agent who arranged the flat for my husband's mistress. I knew that it was in my husband's name and therefore now mine. I told him I was selling the flat as soon as possible. I went to that address. The woman who answered the door was not expecting me. Taking advantage of her shock, I went inside and told her she should pack her bags. She claimed my husband gave her the flat, so I had no right to barge in there. I laughed in her face and told her she had 1 hour to leave. I got the movers in less than the time I gave her. I had the furniture all moved to a storage. She begged me to give her some more time. I would have given in, but then I remembered that she wasn't a passive participant in the affair, she was actively campaigning to replace me in my role as mother to my kids. So of course I smiled when I kicked her out. With that part cut and cauterized, I then focused my attention to destroying my husband's name. My husband, as I mentioned, was a top surgeon. He had been invited to speaking engagements in universities, inspiring students and interns who also wanted to be like him. Inspiring young people wasn't the only thing he had been doing, though. I found out that there was one student whom he had to pay off for some reason. His laptop was a treasure trove of information. The incident was recent, and so when he deleted the files, they were still there. My husband forgot that computers were my thing before he made me into a trad wife. Uncovering what he tried to hide was a walk in the park for me. He paid a student who had accused him of favoring another student in an internship program. The student had some damning evidence, apparently, because he got paid to shut up. The favored student was someone whom he had been screwing. I tracked down that student who got paid. I asked him about it. He admitted that he confronted my husband for excluding him from the program while including the other student. He said he personally saw my husband and the other student in a compromising position together at a hotel lobby. The student said he did receive payment to keep quiet about it, but only because if he didn't accept it, my husband threatened to get him blacklisted from his preferred hospitals. My husband, the student said, even claimed he should be thankful that my husband was offering him money instead of just outright blacklisting him. The other student, by the way, was still interning in the hospital, the same hospital that was honoring my husband for his service. There must be other favored students who sampled his service as well. So I dug deeper. I wasn't hopeful I would find another that easily. I already lucked out with the other one because there was a student that needed to be paid for his silence. So I knew there might not be any paper trail anymore if other incidents existed. Fortunately for me, my husband wasn't the smartest man when it came to technology. He thought deleting emails was enough to clear his tracks. And wouldn't you know it? After just a few minutes of keyboard magic, I was able to see the email exchanges he had with several female students, all of whom sent him their photos with really good angles of their soul. I was able to cross-check the students' names to the hospital internship record. With the proof printed, I went to see the hospital's director the following day. He wanted to discuss with me the memorial that they were organizing for my husband. They wanted his photo to be displayed on their wall. I told them that wasn't a good idea and it would be so much better for them to forget my husband ever existed if they didn't want the good name of their hospital dragged through the mud. I showed him the evidence of how my husband was taking advantage of the internship program to sample the female student population in the schools he was asked to give a talk to. I also told him the payment he made to one of the students who complained about the preferential treatment, adding that since my husband was now dead, that student wasn't bound to the blackmail agreement anymore. I myself wouldn't be happy if I saw my dear husband's memory being revered in the hospital. My mission was to erase my husband's footprint from this hospital, and boy was I successful. The director didn't want trouble. My husband's years of contribution to the hospital weren't enough to warrant a scandal, and so the director cancelled whatever honor they were planning to give him posthumously. I went to his grave following that hospital meeting. I would like to say I spit at his grave before lighting it on fire. But the truth was I went there to cry my last cry. I vowed never to shed a single tear for him again. I also told him all that I had done. And that was the last time I ever went there. My older boys somehow found out about everything I had done. I was lucky enough to have understanding children. They even said they were glad that I did what I did. I was so worried they would be outraged by my actions. My children were the only thing that made me hesitate to do what I did. Their father wasn't cruel to them. It could be said that from the outside, he was even a loving father. But he overestimated his worth to the sons, whom he only saw when he needed to make appearances. My youngest wasn't aware of anything at all. We kept appearances that her father was one that she remembered for her sake. Her brothers would take her to their father's grave on his death anniversaries. That was the only concession on his legacy that I was willing to give him. But for everything else, I still smile every time I remember how I gave my husband a big FU.
If you liked the story, please give it a thumbs up. Share the video and subscribe for more. Click the bell icon so you don't miss out on new videos. Thank you very much.